Hello, welcome back to Armchair Armory. And hello, I'm live, apparently. Doesn't look like anybody's watching at the moment, which is fine. But yeah, it's been a while, been a couple of months since I did the season review for last season. Yeah, not been too bad since then. It's been an eventful summer. What can I say? It has been an incredibly eventful summer so far, if you're an Arsenal fan. I was always going to do a video closer to the season starting or around the time that pre-season started. So here I am. Pre-season has started. It's well and truly underway. I obviously won't be watching any of the games during this time. I won't be paying for it. Basically, I just don't think we should be paying for it. Yeah, I don't think we should really be paying to watch these games, especially if you're a season ticket holder. I mean, I'm not a season ticket holder, so maybe it makes sense for me. And from a personal point of view, right now, I can't really afford it. So it's sort of like, yeah, there's not really much point in me. There's not really much point at the moment in me doing that. So, yeah. So at the moment, I won't be watching any of the games. I literally about 5 minutes before going on to this stream, I watched the highlights of the AC Milan game. Looked okay from what I saw. I mean, it's nothing to write home about. I'm not going to sit here and start celebrating a 1-0 win in pre-season over AC Milan. The two players that they showed in the highlights quite a lot were Reece Nelson and Ethan Nwaneri. So we'll see how it goes. We've got Newcastle in the next pre-season friendly tomorrow afternoon, I believe. Newcastle that look like they're going to be about Alexander Isak next season, which is interesting because at the start of this transfer window, there are a lot of people that said that we wouldn't have anything. That there's no chance that we'd ever be able to be in for Isak. And, as I'm recording this, it's about 2 hours after we got Viktor Gyokeres over the line. So I'm going to be like the rest of the shills out there and do the whole. So, yeah, Viktor Gyokeres, the player that I wanted from the very start in terms of the striker conversation. I mean, if we did go for Benjamin Sesko from Red Bull Leipzig, I wouldn't have been necessarily annoyed as such. I wouldn't have been totally happy because it was a little bit more of the underwhelming signing, but I would have been excited for what his potential is. But with signing a player like Viktor Gyokeres, or Gyokeres, or however you pronounce it, it fills me with a little bit more excitement. I mean, it may not sound like I'm excited, but it fills me with a little bit more excitement. With the fact that he scored nearly 100 goals in the space of 2 seasons for Sporting, and if he produces even half of that in the Premier League for us, we're bound to sort of get somewhere this season. We're bound to, in the words of lead judges, go over the line. So yeah, hopefully this is the sort of missing puzzle piece that we need. And in general, Andrea Berta has come in and has shook things up a little bit, to quote a wrestling phrase. R.I.P. Hulk Hogan, by the way. So, yeah, it's been a pretty crazy summer so far. Started off with a lot of something that, I've complained about a lot in the last few seasons, particularly the last 3 seasons, the sort of like moving the goalpost argument that, we're not good enough, or Arteta's not good enough, or whoever is involved in Arsenal Football Club in a working capacity is not good enough. Perceptively, we started the window slowly. You saw teams like Chelsea and Man City and even Liverpool doing business early. Chelsea and Man City kind of needed to do their business early because of the Club World Cup. City sign players like Cherky and Reinders and Aït-Nouri and players like that. And then you had Chelsea signing João Pedro and from Brighton and Liam Delap from Ipswich and players like that. And then obviously Liverpool have sort of blown everything out of the water by signing players like Florian Wirtz and signing players like they look like they're going in for Alexander Isak now, but this was obviously before. And there was obviously a meltdown because Arsenal fans seem to think that, or seem to have thought that as soon as we hit July the 4th or whatever it was, or June 1st or whatever it was, when the transfer window opened, that we would all of a sudden be signing players left, right and centre. I kind of had a feeling that we wouldn't really get started until July, so that's why I was a little bit calmer about it. I was like, I did think for a split second, it's like, well, I thought we'd have at least one in, like Zubimendi. I thought Zubimendi we'd apparently had agreed since, like, I don't know when it was, January, I think it was, that we had Zubimendi pretty much done. So I thought we'd at least have him announced, but yeah, he didn't get announced until sort of just after. I think he was the second player to be announced, I believe. Out of the ones we've signed so far. So yeah, the signings so far. So we've signed Kepa from Chelsea, replacing Neto, who went back to Bournemouth on loan. We have signed Zubimendi, obviously, from Real Sociedad, which everyone knew that we were going to do in January. We signed Christian Norgard from Brentford. Speaking of Norgard, the two sort of like controversial signings that caused a lot of another meltdown amongst the Arsenal fan base was obviously Norgard from Brentford and then Noni Madueke from Chelsea. Now, I wasn't too keen on Noni Madueke when these links started becoming more and more concrete, when it started looking like it was a real possibility that we were going to sign him. I thought to myself, good player, from the times that I've seen him, particularly when he's played us. He's like the time when we beat them 3-1 at the Emirates like 3 seasons ago. He was their best player. He scored the goal for them and stuff like that. And he looked lively. But I wouldn't go as far as to say that he would be an upgrade on Martinelli necessarily. If he's meant to come in and be the left winger or the left wide player that we're meant to be in for, I wouldn't go as far as to say that he's as big. He's a big upgrade on Martinelli, for example. If we're saying that he's cover for Saka, for example, that's something I can sort of get a little bit more on board about. That's something I can be like, okay, fair enough. If he's coming in to be a replacement, backup for Saka, which is what we duly need, then I'd be like, okay, fine, that's okay. But it's just the 52 million, man. I think it's 48 million rising to 52, but that is insane. For if he is meant to be a backup, that is insane. But it's all done and dusted. He signed. He has his number 20, taken over from Jorginho. Let's see. I won't be one of these people that sat here abusing him and all this sort of stuff. Definitely not. That was again another thing that's ridiculous. It just makes our fan base look so embarrassing. Abusing the player, going after him, all this sort of stuff, going down to the Emirates and defaming murals and putting Arteta out. What are you guys on? I said after the PSG game when we got knocked out by PSG, it's all these fans that move the goalposts every time the club do something that they don't want them to do. It's like, oh, because they've done this now, so therefore they're the worst people in the world. They're this, they're that. Arteta has to go. Berta has to go. Blah, 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 blah. It's just getting boring now, guys. Seriously. And these same fans, if Noni Madueke starts against Man United and scores a hat-trick, those same fans would be going, Noni, I knew that man was going to be a baller, blah, blah, blah. Like, it's pathetic, to be honest. It's absolutely pathetic. But yeah, obviously the big headline in this transfer window so far is obviously Viktor Gyokeres. And yeah, we've managed to get him for quite a decent price as well. You know, there was the Viktor Gyokeres saga in itself was even getting on my nerves towards the end. You know, there was this whole thing for the first 2 months of the transfer window, sort of that period between when it closed briefly, when the Club World Cup started, and then when it opened again. I did watch a little bit of the Club World Cup. It was rubbish. I don't know why people thought it was good. I thought it was rubbish. I thought and I'm not saying that because Chelsea won it. I'm just saying it, but it just felt like glorified friendlies. It feels like the Nations League, it feels like the Nations League. That's essentially what it feels like, but FIFA's version of of UEFA's Nations League. But yeah, so in between that period, there was that whole argument of, you know, the whole debate, Šeško or Gyokeres. And you had, again, because Arsenal fans don't do things normally, you had the sort of skeptical / hardcore Arteta outers that were like Gyokeres. And then you had, or sort of, as they're called in this community, Standards FC, you had people like that on the sort of like Gyokeres side. And then you had other people, you had the sort of like more, let's say, toxic positivity / stat merchants. You had them saying Šeško. And I was somewhere in the middle, but leaning towards Gyokeres. And I'm not part of this whole, as I've made it very clear on this channel many times, I'm not Arteta out at all. Like, if I was ever to be that, if we wanted to put labels on it, it would be for a reason. It wouldn't just be because he hasn't done what I imagined in my head he should have done, sort of thing. But yeah, so there was the whole Šeško Gyokeres thing going on throughout that part of the summer, and it was looking likely, even to the point of where Fabrizio Romano and David Ornstein were reporting on the fact that we were advancing, and that was a word that was used a lot during this transfer window around Arsenal, advancing or concrete talks or whatever. And we had this whole thing of like, oh yeah, it's looking like it's going to be Šeško. And then all of a sudden, I think it's because Leipzig wouldn't budge on the price. I think they were quoting like 80 million euros or 90 million euros or something like that, which Arsenal weren't prepared to pay for someone that was a sort of still seen as a prospect. And the next thing you know, like, this Gyokeres stuff starts building momentum. We then all of a sudden, I think 2 weeks ago, on a Sunday, we got the drop from, you know, the sort of main journalists in this space, as I mentioned, Ornstein and Fabrizio, saying that Sporting and Arsenal had agreed a deal in principle for Viktor Gyokeres, and that a 5-year contract has been agreed with Viktor Gyokeres and his representatives. And it's looking like it was going on. It was looking like within the week he'd be our player. And then, you know, it just seemed to drag on and on and on, to the point of where, you know, Gyokeres and his agency had to forego 2 million euros of the signing on fee or something like that. And then there was this whole back and forth around the add-ons, around the structure of the deal, stuff like that. It probably took a week longer than we expected. And then on Tuesday, I think, was it Tuesday or Thursday? I can't remember. No, I think it was Tuesday. Yeah, it was Tuesday. Definitely Tuesday. Tuesday, we get this Tuesday just gone. We get the here we go, and the Ornstein bomber, as they're calling it now, saying, yeah, Viktor Gyokeres to Arsenal, here we go. So yeah, pretty good. We'll see what happens. He's going to come in with a lot of pressure on his shoulders because he was announced, as I say, about 2 hours before I started recording. He will take the number 14 shirt, the iconic Thierry Henry 14 shirt, which players like Eddie Nketiah and Theo Walcott, well, Theo Walcott did okay in it, I'd say. I wouldn't say he was a bad player for us. You know, and Nketiah tried, but he was never really going to live up to. He was never going to live up to the sort of stature of Thierry Henry, and neither was Theo Walcott. But I don't think he did as bad as a lot of fans are making out that he did. So we he takes the 14 shirt, and let's see. I wouldn't be surprised if Havertz still starts against Man United on the 17th of August. To be honest, I wouldn't be shocked at all if that happens. Yeah, I would not be shocked, just because Gyokeres is coming into preseason late. He probably won't feature probably until the Spurs game, which is next Wednesday, I think, in Hong Kong. I think that's probably when we'll see him play. I don't think he'll be in Singapore by tomorrow. But the fact, to be fair, full credit to the club, they managed to get this all done quickly. To get him in for preseason, even if it's like halfway through preseason, we've managed to do it. So, yeah. And the good news is I don't think we're done. I think there's going to be at least one more player coming in before the end of the transfer window. There's also going to be a few outgoings, I can imagine. We've already had a couple. Kieran Tierney went out on a free transfer back to Celtic. Takehiro Tomiyasu, one of my favorite players a couple of seasons ago. I think he's one of the only players that I actually had their name written on the back of my shirt from that season, because he was by far one of the most outstanding players of that season. He left the club under mutual consent. They cancelled his contract. Maybe he just felt that he couldn't do it. He couldn't risk, having another injury that potentially ends his career. So, yeah, Tomiyasu, gone. Jorginho, obviously, has gone. And then, obviously, we move on to a bit of a sad and a little bit of a slightly grey cloud over the club. This club goes around with a reputation of class and decency and stuff like that. And there's a lot of questions that need answering in this situation. Now, I'm not going to sit here and do what a lot of people have done. I mean, I'll talk about it in general. So basically, around the time that Zubimendi was coming in, I don't think Zubimendi had been announced, but I think the here we go from Fabrizio had been done for Zubimendi and all that. I think the club were having discussions with Thomas Partey around a new contract, a year extension or something like that. That didn't come to fruition. Thomas Partey was allowed to leave on a free transfer. And then a couple of days after it had been confirmed that Partey was leaving, news came out that he indeed was the Arsenal player that they referred to in terms of sexual harassment and rape charges. It's not good. Doesn't look good, because obviously Partey played for us for 2 years, and apparently these allegations, these charges go back 2 years or 3 years, and obviously Partey played quite a significant amount of games in that time for Arsenal. Now, as much as I think I'm more concerned about the fact that we offered him a new contract than I am about the fact that he played, because I know that there's sort of laws around employment and stuff like that, that if, while these you can't sack someone based on allegations. There has to be concrete proof. And I like to think that, because I know there's been a lot of back and forth and a lot of sort of like noise around Arteta saying after everything he's been through, etc. I also think that obviously I hope he's done his due diligence as the manager and gone to Partey and said, did you do this? Or is there any truth to this? And I can imagine Partey's gone no. And Arteta maybe naively has just said, okay, well, that's fine for me. I'm gonna move on. I'm sort of glad he's not our player anymore, because if it does turn out that he's guilty, it's going to make the club. It would make the club look a little less bad than they already do, or than they already might do if he gets charged. If he gets convicted, sorry, because at the moment it's charges. They feel like they have enough evidence to charge him. He will go to court and he will fight it. He denies the allegations, which is fair enough. You would do. but yeah, no, it's not a look good. It's not a good look. It leaves a little bit of a stain on the club slightly. I'm not, well, that's a bit extreme. I'm not going to be one of the, this is another thing that annoys me with all of this stuff. The sort of white knighting that you get from people across the club. I mean, I'm not going to sit here and say whether he did it or not, because at the end of the day, you still have to remain neutral until judgment is done, innocent until proven guilty. I can't sit here and talk about the case. I'm just a fan at the end of the day. But rest assured, you know, for what it's worth, like, I always felt uncomfortable celebrating a goal that Partey scored or anything that Partey did, knowing that, and every time, you know, he would be booed everywhere he went, pretty much. It always made me feel a little bit uncomfortable. But having said that, I cannot stand the white knighting that we've got going on. That happens every single time. And it's a societal thing. I think the same people that are sort of maybe defending Thomas Partey or did defend Thomas Partey are the same people that, or not are the same people. At the same time, I don't like the people that sit here and make out as if they were against the idea. Well, the people that have gone online and ranted and raved about how disgusting the club is and that they're cancelling their season ticket. And if you want to do that, that's fine. But I just think it's grandstanding at the end of the day. I think the club is bigger. Our support for Arsenal is bigger than what's happened. We even if he's guilty or not guilty, we can move past this. I just think people that are sitting there saying that there'll also be, as I mentioned earlier on, people in that sort of Standards FC group that will sit there and say that Arteta should be sacked from it. Another goalpost mover to say, oh yeah, because he knew about Thomas Partey, yeah, well, we should sack him. I just can't stand all that shit. I can't stand the grandstanding. I can't stand the point scoring, which is another thing that's annoyed me, where people are using it, rival fans are using it to get one over on Arsenal fans and stuff like that. Like, somebody did it to me the other day where they were like sending me screenshots of people like saying the club's disgusting and all this sort of stuff, like mostly Tottenham fans. Mostly Spurs fans were doing that. And yeah, I was pissed off by it, because it's like, it's not something you joke about. It's not something that you use to make yourself look better. And to be fair, whose club is perfect? Again, I know that sounds really trivial and elementary and sort of fundamentalist, but whose club is perfect? You know, you got clubs like City and PSG, City that are probably allegedly bent the rules in places. You've got PSG that are owned by a state, Newcastle that are owned by a state, Man United owned by fucking alleged, what money launderers, pretty much. You know, unfortunately, the realistic thing is that football is a dirty business or has become a dirty business. But we will still support Arsenal. You know, it's not changed. You see me still wearing the colours now. Like, it's not going to change my opinion of the club, no matter what happens. It might do for a few games, but once, you know, I'm watching the whatever the game is at the time, I'll probably forget about it. The main sympathy I have is for, if it is true, and if he is found guilty, the alleged victims, you know, obviously, like, you don't want to. It's whatever they're going through must be hell, you know, just as much as probably Partey is, if he didn't do it, for example. I'm trying to be balanced. Don't cancel me. I'm trying to be balanced here. I'm trying to be nuanced about the situation. I wish people would be a bit more nuanced about these sort of situations. Because, yeah, like, regardless of the fact that he's going to court for it, he still might get away with it. You know, Benjamin Mendy did, for example, at Man City. And not get away with it. He was found not guilty. So there is a world where Partey could be found not guilty, for example. But that was something else that happened during this time. Overall, yeah. But going back to the transfer window, to be able to sort of go on a bit more of a end on a bit more of a positive, is I don't think we're done. I have a feeling in terms of departures, I think it looks like Martinelli or Trossard are going to be the casualties here. We're linked with players like Rodrigo from Real Madrid and Eberechi Eze from Crystal Palace. I think Eze is probably the more likely player to come in than Rodrigo at this point. But yeah, I think Martinelli or Trossard will probably be two players that one of those will probably go. More likely Trossard. I'm hoping it's more likely to be Trossard. Trossard's done well for us, don't get me wrong. But I do think that it's probably come to the time now where we could sell him on. It looks like Zinchenko might go. It looks like Kivior might go. There's Reece Nelson, there's Sambi Lokonga, there's all players like that will probably go eventually. There's been a few re-signings as well. Gabriel Magalhaes signed a new contract. Ethan Nwaneri signed a new contract. I noticed in that friendly against AC Milan, he's got a new number now, 22. If we can get Saka and Saliba over the line extended, then that would be perfect. That would and we get one more player in, that would probably be a 10 out of 10 window. But yeah, so all in all, not too bad so far. I think we've done okay. I think this has been a very unprecedented Arsenal transfer window, where most of the time we're sitting here moaning of Arsenal fans that we're always short. I think we've done well so far, and I think we've got more to do. Now, I said I was going to end, but one final thing that I wanted to talk about was the start of the Premier League season. And I'm so behind that I'm talking about something that came out in June. So obviously we've got the friendlies against Spurs and Newcastle on Sunday and Thursday. So tomorrow and next Thursday. Then we've got a friendly match at the Emirates against Villarreal. And then the Emirates Cup against Athletic Club on the 9th. And then a week later, we head to Old Trafford. I'm going to share my screen for this. Using Arsenal's website. We head to Old Trafford, first game of the season. They've done some decent business, probably not enough to get them back to where they need to be. They've signed Brian Mbeumo from Brentford and Mateus Cunha from Wolves, which, aren't bad signings. I mean, Cunha, the jury's a little bit out because I feel like he's had one good season for Wolves and has already got this big move. Good player, don't get me wrong. I'm more impressed with Mbeumo than I am with Cunha, put it that way. Then our first home game is against Leeds. It's going to be difficult because it's probably their first away game in the Premier League. First time they've played us for 2 or 3 seasons. We've got a really hard start to this Premier League season. Man United away, Leeds at home, Liverpool away, Forest at home, City at home, and then Newcastle away. It's going to be crazy, man. Although Newcastle might be a little bit easier if they don't have Isak anymore. But then that Liverpool game on the 31st of August becomes so much harder if they do have Isak. So, it's going to be interesting. I've already seen people saying there's no excuses this season. We have to win it. We have to win the league, this, that, and the other. For me, I'll just say what I say every single season. I think I agree with that sentiment to an extent, but I'm not going to be one of those ones that it's like Premier League, Champions League, or bust. I feel like we do have to win a trophy this season. We have to win something this season. We have to get over the line in something this season. And if we don't, then it's sort of like, then we've got to have a conversation about whether Mikel is the man to take us forward any further than he can. But you have no guaranteed right to win the Champions League or the Premier League. If you think about it, if you look at how, well, then again, I don't know, I take it with a pinch of salt, that Club World Cup final between Chelsea and PSG. But you look at, the difference between the golfing class last season between us and PSG compared to when we played them in the group stages in the league phase, it's night and day. And we were sort of like passengers towards the end of it. And then the league, you know, it wasn't just the fact that we weren't as good as we were the last 2 seasons. We were totally burned out. Red cards also contributed very early in the season. A lot of injuries at the wrong time. You know, at the turn of the season, there was a few critical injuries like Saka and Havertz and Martinelli for a time. Then obviously we had the Ødegaard injury earlier on in the season. So yeah, like it was never, there was extenuating circumstances. It was disappointing. As I said in my review of the season, it was disappointing based on what could have been. I was very excited going into last season, and it just didn't quite pan out like that. And I'm trying not to get my expectations high again because of the summer window, the transfer window we've had so far, and what could be. Because, you know, it might be the case that, you know, Gyokeres has done amazing in Portugal and okay in the Championship when he played for Coventry, but he might come to Arsenal and completely flop. I'm sort of glad he didn't take the number 9 shirt because that seems to be cursed, that shirt. If you look at people that have worn that shirt in the past, well, particularly in the Premier League era, like, well, since Alan Smith, like if you look at Davor Schuker, Alexandre Lacazette, players like that, they just didn't hit the heights that they were expected to at Arsenal. Even Gabriel Jesus, you know, that first season Gabriel Jesus came in, him and Zinchenko completely changed us, completely made us in almost were the 2 blocks that made us into this team that we are now, you know, into these contenders that we are now. But injuries essentially just fucked them both, particularly Gabriel Jesus. So yeah, I go into this season with a little bit more hope, but slightly less expectation than I did last season. As I said, we have no God-given right to win the Premier League and the Champions League. We have no God-given right to win any trophy, to be honest. But I feel like that should be a minimum expectation to win some sort of silverware. Not necessarily the league. I'd love it if we won the league, but some sort of silverware we should be winning. And hopefully the players we've signed, particularly Gyokeres, can take us over that line. I'm going to do Lee Judges again. Take us over the line. Take us over the line. Yeah. So, yeah. Nobody's watching. So I've just been talking to myself for the last half an hour. Oh, well. It's got some thoughts off my chest, at least. I probably won't be doing the next season preview live. That's one thing I do know. But yeah, I'm glad to be back doing Armchair Armory again. As you've noticed, Armchair Armory has now become its own channel. So yeah, I've decided to split the sort of film, TV, and games sort of Ents, Dan interest stuff separate from Armchair Armory. Because I felt like it was a little bit too hard to manage, and I felt like it was the Arsenal stuff was doing a little bit better than everything else. So it was like, let me see what happens if I split them up. So while I was on holiday last week and the week before, I spent a lot of that time changing everything, getting a new channel set up for the other stuff, which I'm slowly but surely going to re-upload most of what I had on the old Dan channel that was under this banner. But yeah, Armchair Armory starts off as usual. As you see, new background, trying to do new things. I've got a new intro now, or a modified intro from what I had last season, trying to make it look a little bit more professional. So hopefully you'll come along and join me for the ride for the 25-26 season. But as I say, there's probably still more to talk about. I'll try and do another season preview once we get sort of closer to the season, maybe around the time of the Emirates Cup. We'll see who we've got, whether we've signed any more players by then, whether there's been any more controversies, anything like that. So yeah, if you decide to watch this later on, which it looks like people will do because nobody watched this, yeah, thank you for watching. Like and subscribe. Take care and stay safe.